Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. So we're right at 5 p.m. And here in Missouri. We know many of you are all across the country and folks outside of the US too. We wanted to kind of get right down to it tonight. So this hour is a check-in space for students here in the age of COVID-19. This has been an unprecedented time in so many ways for us all as students and trainees, as well as professionals in counseling psychology who've been able to join us tonight to be a resource and allies to students. We're going to be taking the hour, as was kind of shared in the description of the webinar, first and foremost to just provide a space of acknowledgement and support of the complexities that are going on for students. I think everyone who signed up for the call was able to get a link to a survey that we put out to try to begin to get a sense of what your priorities were for tonight. And the feedback really kind of affirmed for us that people's needs are broad, they're varying a lot by whether you're a master's student, a doctoral student, your year of training, your positionality in the world, the identities that you carry, your training site. And we're not going to be able to explore and attend to everything that everyone is experiencing tonight, but something that's so, I think, common across all of our experiences right now is just wanting some connection and a sense of being part of community in some way. So we are so looking forward to hearing from you and interacting with you through the chat and Q&A, sharing pieces of our experience. We have a great many-person panel here of SAS students and professional members of Division 17's COVID-19 task group, who are also leaders of APA's Division 17, the Society of Counseling Psychology. So we're going to start off tonight introducing ourselves and then be moving into some discussion sections around major topics that were flagged in the survey results in the first portion related to academic and clinical training, and then in the second portion related to the social impact of COVID-19 and what kind of community care looks like in this time. So I'll start off with the introductions. I do want to note as we begin sharing that this call is being recorded so that it can be shared to students who couldn't make it tonight and be a resource for students moving forward in the division. As a starting place, we hope to have future calls and to collaborate together broadly across programs to make other resources to attend to what students need. But I'll say more about that toward the end of the call. For now, to wrap up my start here, my name is Gloria McGillen. I am a third-year doctoral student at the University of Missouri. I'm one of the co-chairs of student affiliates of 17, SCP's student group. I am a clinical trainee at the University of Missouri Counseling Center, and we just had our whole practice move online. So I'm on spring break now, but I'm about to be starting doing telehealth for the first time, beginning this coming Monday. I'm also in the middle of finalizing my dissertation proposal and working with my advisor and committee around that. So that's the sort of academic clinical training pieces that have been salient for me as COVID-19 has kind of been becoming part of life. On the personal side, my mom grew up in a low-income family, and my mom's in that group of folks for whom retirement as an older adult is hard. So she's still out there working. So I've been thinking a lot about just the needs of older adults who are kind of frontline workers. So I'm going to move kind of across the screen as I see it to welcome the other panelists, and so they can share. We're going to be launching a poll when we're done introducing ourselves so we can learn a little bit more about you and hear from you about just how things have been feeling. So I'm gonna invite Jocelyn and Sandra to start.
Hi, I'm Sandra Gomez. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm a second-year master's student graduating in May, so that's one way this has affected me. What else? Oh, I am the co-membership chair of SAS also. And like I said, I'm supposed to be graduating, and that right now, like at least the ceremony has been canceled, and I know I was really looking forward to that. And I know a lot of my cohort members like were really excited for their families to be there and everything, so I feel that. And then I started seeing clients through telehealth last week, and I've never done telehealth before, so I kind of had a crash course on it the day before, and then the next day started seeing clients like that. So that's been a learning curve, and I personally, both of my parents are still working because their jobs are considered essential, so not being with them has caused some stress too, so I'm thinking about that, and other people, like Gloria said, that are on the front lines and doing all that work. Yeah, I think that's it for me.
Cool. Okay, my name's Jocelyn Jimenez. I'm a first-year master's student. I go by she, her, hers. For me personally, it's been more of like in SAS, I'm programming chair. And in terms of me, it's been a curve in like academics, I guess, just being able to balance online classes, all these seminars having to attend. So the format of everything being online has been a huge challenge, just because I personally don't do well with online. I am more of like an in-person learner. So that has been a huge learning curve, and kind of like touching on what Sandra spoke. My dad is also still working very actively outside. So that's like a concern for my family, and then being far away from them has been a challenge and stress. So it's a lot having to tackle at once. But I've had good support systems with like friends and roommates and advisors as well. So that's about it for me. But
Thanks so much, Colleen.
Hi, I'm Colleen Eddy. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I'm a fifth-year doctoral student here at the University of Missouri and a SAS co-chair. And I recently received good news that I matched during phase 2 of the internship process, so I'm excited about that. But it's a time of a lot of uncertainty with where am I going to live next year? How am I going to defend my dissertation? What's graduation and wrapping up things going to look like? And so just a lot of uncertainty with program things, and then, you know, with family and supporting clients and everything at large. It's a lot at once. So looking forward to hearing from all of you about what you're experiencing as well and how we can support each other.
Thanks, Colleen. CJ?
Hey everyone, I'm Chanjang Park. I usually go by CJ, and I use she, her, hers for pronouns. I'm a first-year doctoral student. I'm also an international student from South Korea. And I'm also co-chair of Excellence Innovation Pillar at SAS. And right now I'm writing my dissertation, and like from the looks of it, since I will have to defend via Zoom, hopefully next month. So that's one way that this COVID-19 has been affecting me. And on a more personal side, so my whole family is still back in Korea. So last month I was really worried about them, and this month they're worried about me. So it seems like as a whole, our family has been in this constant state of anxiety for a couple of months. And I think that's been taking a toll on us in a way.
Thanks, CJ. Carmen?
Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Carmen Cruz, and I'm the Internship Training Director at Texas Women's University in Denton, Texas. I use she, her pronouns. I'm super excited to be here to help you all through this process in any way that I can. I'm also currently ACTA president, which basically means it's the national organization that represents all internship training directors and university counseling centers that have internships. And so I can provide potentially more perspective from that lens. So thanks for having me here.
Thanks so much for being here. And to all the professional members who are on the call as allies, it really means a lot. Robina.
Hi, y'all. I'm Robina. I prefer she, her pronouns. I am a 4th year at Mizzou, and I'm in the counseling psychology program. My role in SAS is I'm the co-chair for the Equity and Social Justice Committee. I guess milestones that are kind of being impacted during this time, I'll be proposing my dissertation in a couple weeks via Zoom. Pros and cons to that, and just trying to move through adjusting to teaching online using Zoom with students, and also giving content via the web for some students who might not have great access to internet all the time. So navigating that and providing them with support, but also, you know, taking care of myself and thinking of family. Thankfully, my dad is able to work from home, but my mom is in healthcare, and she recently actually had a scare where she came in contact with some patients who might have been positive. So she's now not, you know, able to be at work and just monitoring herself. So just kind of thinking through those things. Something that I've been feeling during this time is this wanting to use this time to be super productive, but also just being compassionate with myself and understanding that I don't really have to, you know, get all these things done, and use this time like to create some great masterpiece.
Thanks so much, Robina. Johanna.
Hi, everybody. My name is Johanna. I'm a 3rd year counseling psychology student, also at Mizzou. I'm a member with SAS, and I'm with my colleagues on this call. So something for me that's been affected is a couple of things. With clinical training, I provide one-on-one patient care with assessment, and I'm no longer able to provide that traditional work. So we're going to be moving to some telehealth training opportunities, and so that was adjustment, not being able to complete my training in assessment. And also, I have family in New York, all around the US as well, but specifically in New York, I think about a lot of my family is in healthcare, and they haven't stopped working. And I do have members at this time who are positive for coronavirus. And it's just been, to Robina's point, a push and pull of really trying to be productive, but then also feeling very distracted. I would say that my couple of words, how I'm feeling, is both peaceful and stressed. And something that has been helping is just sitting in silence and prayer, and just kind of giving myself that space.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Johanna. Annalise.
Hi, everyone. My name is Annalise Singh. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and they, them, theirs. Right now, I'm serving as president of the Division of Counseling Psychology. I'm at the University of Georgia, where I serve as professor and associate dean of diversity, equity, inclusion. Those are just a lot of big words. I've just been thinking about students so much during this time right now. You know, it's been 13 years since I graduated, so it was a hot minute ago. But I have to tell you, milestones that have just been heartbreaking this week: running a comps defense by Zoom yesterday, running a dissertation defense by Zoom yesterday. You know, these times where I would have my hands around my people, and vice versa, just not being able to have that physical contact, I think has been really challenging. And yet, you know, 51 people showed up to a dissertation defense that was previously really inaccessible. And it was family members, and it was people who had nothing to do with the academy, and it was beautiful, and it was brilliant, and it was all the things at once. So I'm also thinking about all the people who have commencements that are postponed right now. And so I just really want to applaud SAS for your leadership, for creating this space. If you followed any of my presidential initiatives, they're all about liberation. And not that I have all the answers, but I think we actually do. So I'm looking forward to listening and supporting and really learning, like what are the things that we really need to be paying attention right now and supporting students, not just during the times of COVID, but in terms of what if we really freaking transformed our profession so it was actually a liberatory place for people to experience amidst all these milestones. So thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
Thanks so much for your leadership, Annalise, through all of it. It has been really just like an amazing year to start SAS. And I think with the foundation of the liberation spirit of this year, like a really important like kind of critical resource for us right now, kind of confronting what we are. Shazneen.
Hi everyone, my name is Shazneen Darwala. I use she, her pronouns, and let me just, before I go further into introduction, let you know this is such an honor to be here as an ally, as a support person for within community of the next generation. So I'm just feeling a lot, you know, hearing your introductions and seeing your faces, and also it's breaking my heart to also hear how you know, milestones are being impacted, and then also feeling a lot with how Annalise described a traditional way of celebrating a milestone became a transformative way. So I'm an international practitioner. I'm a licensed psychologist at Oregon State University. I am currently on H-1B visa, and that is one of my salient identities. So I'm happy. I was a former international graduate student, so I'm happy to provide any support, any wisdom, any advocacy in that area. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Shazneen, and also for your leadership in the COVID-19 task group in the division, and the work that's beginning to develop there, specifically for, I mean, students, international students, students of Asian descent who are being targeted, and other students and groups that are having a heightened impact from this experience. We know that it is a lot of amazing people tuned in, and so we're going to shift gears now to hear a little bit more about you, where you're at in training in the world, and also, so we're going to launch a poll to do those pieces. But some of the panelists, as they were presenting, were beginning to practice something we wanted to invite you to do too, just like a one or a couple word check-in about just how you've been feeling amid all of the onset of COVID, and maybe something that's been helping you through. Like for me, I am definitely an introverted person, and one of those people who the virtual move was in part like, yes, I'm into this, but I've been also finding that my sense of community has increased with that change, and that's been huge for me in coping with what's been really stressful and difficult in this time. So community would be my one word. I'm going to launch the poll now. So there's some questions for everyone who is an audience member to answer on there, and then I'll share out. I think I might be the only person who can see the responses, and then we would welcome you to send in your one word check-ins about how you've been feeling, and resource that's meaningful to you in the chat box. You can do that either through the all panelists function. We on the screen would be able to see that, or to panelists and attendees, so you can all hear from one another. So feel free to do whatever feels most comfortable for you. And here is the poll. So I'll let this run for a minute here. And I know not all of our panelists got to do their one word check-in. How have other folks just been feeling? And a resource that's meant something to you.
think my one word would be unbalanced. I think that's been the biggest challenge for me, is to reestablish my balance and my just deal with rhythm of doing things. And something that has been helpful for me is just focusing on what I can control and letting go of the things that I cannot control. So kind of just realizing the difference between the two has been helpful for me.
I'm seeing come up in the chat box here kind of that on that just the theme of how difficult this is: stressed, exhausted, distressed, uncertain.
I could share a little bit, Gloria, if that's okay, in terms of a check-in. Just as a psychologist, as a human, as an internship training director, I would say probably over responsibility. I don't know if that counts as two words, but just responsibility. I feel a very strong sense of responsibility in terms of psychology training, and that's been my entire life. So as Annalise said, I graduated, 22 years ago or something like that, I graduated. And it was definitely a different time. And, but my passion is about students at the end of the day. And so the personal pieces of losing your practicum potentially, I was surprised even a few of you shared that you are still able to do telehealth, because most practicum counselors and therapists are not able to do that, and only at the internship level and the postdoc level. So I think wanting you all to know that there are a lot of people out there really trying to make a difference in how this path goes. And from a liberation perspective, and just really from a fairness perspective, and from a realistic perspective of where we are in this global anxiety. So just want you to know that we have your back. That's really important for me to say today, is that we, at the national level, the leadership that's there is really trying to make a difference to be able to, in a literally hourly changing situation, both about the pandemic, but also about training and education, and how to do that. I think that our hearts are in the right place. I'll tell you that for sure. And I know it's been frustrating, like we want all the answers, and that's part of, anxiety and uncertainty, right? The unknown, we recognize it brings up a lot of stress and anxiety. So yeah, we're here for you.
Thanks so much, Carmen. And I think that what you're naming is really echoing, I mean, what's coming through here in the chat box. I think anxiety and uncertainty have been kind of the most common words that are popping up. And what we were seeing in the survey results when we were doing kind of just the assessment before this call was that, how much of that is really focused on training questions. So for the next kind of portion of the call, we wanted to start there. And so I think Colleen is going to be kind of transitioning us now.
Yeah, thanks, Gloria. Yeah, thank you everyone who's sharing their words for what they're experiencing right now. So we're going to talk a bit about the clinical and academic training and how it relates to everything going on with COVID-19. I want to share I'm doing school-based mental health right now, and since schools are closed, our practicum site's trying to scramble how to figure out if we're able to provide telehealth services, what that looks like, and again, kind of a crash course in figuring out how to do that. And not all students at the school have access to Wi-Fi, and we're not able to meet with all the students. So it's tough. And so dealing with wanting to be there and support the students that I work with and my clients. I work with a lot of children. They're pretty uncertain right now, and it's hard to provide the reassurance and support that I want to provide during a time when everything is so stressful and anxiety provoking. It's a lot. And so I definitely felt some of the things that came up with this assessment survey that we did. There's a lot of uncertainty about clinical training, not being able to continue with practicum. What does that mean for meeting hours requirements, and then applying for internship and things like that, or even for students who are on internship, completing internship. One of my friends is on internship, and a lot of her internship is assessment based, and not being able to continue with those assessments through telehealth. So a lot of uncertainty, or having to continue with internship and meeting with clients and safety concerns around that. and the question about graduating on time. So there's a lot of questions and things coming up, and wanted to check in with some of the other Mizzou panelists on the call here about their experiences with their practicums and academic training as well. Jocelyn, do you want to share a little bit from your perspective?
Yeah, so definitely as a first year's master's student, I feel like it was already kind of overwhelming. But now, like kind of like what I touched on earlier, just having to now adapt to the online school environment, it's been quite a challenge. Because like I said, I'm an in-person learner. And then this was also the season of applying to practicum, so that's been put on hold. And I know that's been very stressful for many. Because you like knowing that certainty of like, okay, I will be here, let me prepare, let me train properly, even in terms of like dates, like traveling, especially in terms of the summer. But I know that for many master's students, assistantship has also been very, very stressful, because I know some of them have hour requirements that they have to complete, depending on who they work for. And in my case, that has been a huge burden, just because I worked at a site at a Head Start. So it's very difficult to complete those hours because our assistantship literally is just us teaching 3 to 5 year olds. So you can't really do that online. So it's been quite a burden having to fulfill those hours. And then on top of that, classes going on, and I feel like there's a lot going on in terms of like homework, projects, research. So it's like a lot of that. And on top of that, you're stuck at home, closed up. You can't go to a coffee shop. You can't kind of get into a more calm environment. So it's very overwhelming because you have many factors. But in my personal case, I feel like I've had a good support system, amazing support system. I have a friend and a roommate right next to me. So we're both going through the same, and that's been nice to connect with someone and know that you're not the only one going through all of that.
Yeah, Jocelyn, thanks for sharing that, and the kind of the turmoil that you're voicing, that this is evoking for master students. I want to just observe that from the poll, so about 28% of people who are tuning in are master students, and on this question that I think everybody should be able to see now from the shared poll results, 33% of master students are on the call are reporting that they're uncertain about their graduation or whether this would be their last semester. So just kind of want to note that that's a really difficult state to be in. And I think it makes me wonder, sort of from the perspective of your perspective, Carmen or Shazneen, being in training roles, what you might be encouraging students to do, both master's and doctoral students who feel that they might not be able to move forward with a milestone, whether that's graduation or a clinical milestone, like completing internship.
I almost want to wait for you, Carmen, because you have the higher position than I do. I'm happy to share what my site is doing and in the process of working. We are a accredited internship site. So we do have 4 interns who I think previously, I think Carmen or someone mentioned on the call, interns have been cleared for teletherapy hours. So I think they will meet their milestone. For our practicum students, and we have practicum students that are not graduate students in our university, but they commute to our site. So the last I heard this morning from our interim practicum coordinator is that most likely we are moving into a combination of them doing a smaller caseload and doing some outreach projects. I know that a number of other calls that I've been on, there's been a shift towards having practicum students who haven't been cleared, and I'm sorry, I don't know the specifics of them not being cleared, other than they might not have access to technology because we don't allow them to take OSU laptops back home, that they will probably help out with maybe some resources for the community, or maybe even doing some outreach projects, which as far as I know on our side, the need for that has really exponentially increased in the last week or so. So I know that our mental health promotion department really appreciates the hours that the prac students will be putting in, and I'm hoping that that will count as, maybe direct service hours, so that they can continue to work towards the clinical hour. And I'm hoping from a grad program side that there is forgiveness and grace and flexibility for whatever the mark was in September of 2019, that gets relaxed to in August of 2020. Carmen, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, and I'm spending some time reading some of the comments and questions that are about internships specifically. I mean, in terms of, I don't have as much experience at the master's level in terms of addressing that. But I think practicum in general, we could, whether you're a master's or doc student, there's similar processes that are happening. I recognize, and I really want to validate the frustration around the not knowing, right? And not just the emotional process of it. And part of it is as leaders, it's hard for us. I mean, even in being part of writing the APIC, there have been several statements put out there. APIC, APA, Canadian Psych Association, and ASPPB all put out a statement. But even creating that, and then CCTC, which is, I know I'm throwing around a lot of alphabet soup right now, but that council is basically the 15 training councils of people studying psychology across North America. We also put out a statement yesterday, but it took days to write, obviously, because there's so many sites. The site differential is a huge problem, because university counseling centers are not even doing one thing, right? But I would say that probably at the practicum level, the university counseling center terrain, I would say maybe, I mean, this is not a research number at all, but just from my experience on the listserv, maybe 80–90% at UCCs are not doing telehealth, only at the intern and postdoc level. And so I know that that may not impact, that could potentially impact a graduation. It generally would impact hours. It is somewhat fortunate that this happened in the middle of the spring versus the middle of the fall for some people. I do see that a little bit of a silver lining, especially from the internship perspective, because one of the things that I would say that, and to address a question that was put forth, is that there isn't 100% clarity around internship completion, but it's starting to become more clear. Part of it is almost, I think that the majority of people are able to do some sort of telehealth and can finish, complete the 500 direct service hour requirement. And training directors are being very creative around trying to help interns get those direct service hours, even if they're not in the traditional direct service. So for instance, one of my perspectives that I'm trying to get across to the Commission on Accreditation from APA, at APA, is that the learning that interns are learning this year, other interns don't learn, right? This boots on the ground, watch everybody scramble to create in a week and a half an entire new way to deliver service. And watch the director, the associate director, all the psychologists spin and struggle, So I think that there's some learning and creativity, flexibility, crisis management. I mean, I could go on and on. And so as a training director, so me personally, not speaking for all training directors, I know that I am going to look at my interns and think, okay, I've already assessed them 2/3, almost 3/4 of the way, right? We're almost in the last quarter in some way. I have a sense of their competency. I have a sense of if I'm comfortable signing off on that they got 500 direct hour, maybe they got 478. I'm still going to sign off that they had 500 if I feel like they are ready to practice at the postdoctoral level. And I feel like training directors have that power and, big and, are anxious to break some sort of rule around, falsifying something. I'm going to probably have them as professional development hours at some level, right? I think that there's a lot of professional development that even if it wasn't direct service, is happening, and that's something that the COA, the Commission on Accreditation, hopefully will endorse, right? So we're in a process of that, in a very early stage of this process, I guess. Sorry to use the same word twice in one sentence. And so I think at the internship level, there's a little bit more of a positivity, essentially, in terms of potentially completing. I think at the practicum level, and I am curious to hear from other panelists and other students in terms of their experiences and how that, you know, are you able to finish your practicum? Are you not? But so at the internship level, if anybody has any other specific questions, I'm happy to answer them. But that's sort of a general place where we are in terms of internships. Hospital internships are a little bit more complex because of medical professionals are used to being there, right? Like they just have to stay. And from a mental health professional perspective, we're obviously learning that we can work from home. And although some physicians do provide video, you know, telehealth and things like that, of course, it's not a regular standard of practice, and especially when somebody might have COVID-19. And so we have heard some pretty terrible stories about interns in certain cities and hospitals that are being sort of forced to come in, and that's a little bit, and so that's a whole different world than what I live in. And at the same time, it is something that I feel like at the APA level, it is starting to be attended to. I'll stop there, but I'm happy. I don't want to dominate.
Yeah, and Carmen, thanks so much for being detailed in that way. I mean, from a student perspective, and I'm seeing this echoed in the comments, just the gratitude to you all willing to speak from your professional roles, and to some of the deliberations and principles that are starting to be laid out in those big bodies that are governing training that I think students are rapidly learning a lot about and learning how to interact with, to advocate for themselves and to just kind of understand their roles. But it has, you know, I think it feels opaque in many ways. And to just sort of hear live some information, and also just the spirit like you're conveying that is so student-centered and is willing to name some of the uncertainty is really helpful. And you touched on, I think, also a situation that has been named in the survey results, and I think here in the chat box, of being asked to come in and do hours when one might not feel safe. Yeah, I mean, it's just a really difficult position and time right now.
Absolutely, and not all internships are the same, and that's inherently the biggest problem, is how to address this. And individual, I mean, it's really a parallel process to the rest of what's happening with COVID-19. Like, do the governor say something? Do the city people say something? Do the county leaders say something? Does the president say something? You know, so that it's manifesting in our own process of, you know, who makes the decision? Can the internship training director make it? Does it have to be APA? You know, all of that. How many cycles do we make changes for? Is it 1 year? Is it 2 years? So, you know, I do have a lot of, I don't know, a lot of times tell my students, TTP it out, trust the process. I know it's hard to do that. It's very hard to just trust the process. But I do feel like in the coming weeks, as we settle into our homes a little bit, there will be a little bit more bandwidth and space to get into more of the nitty-gritty versus these more broad statements that are being delivered right now because of the uncertainty and not being able to address every single specific issue.
Yeah, and as we're kind of moving into the next sections of this call about just the social impact of COVID-19 and how different positionalities and identities that students hold are, as well as clients, are part of getting down into the nitty gritty. In our final section on, like, as a student community, what do we want to do next? What questions do we want to be asking? What conversations might we want to set up next? I think returning to some of these training focus concerns be really important.
So I'd like to jump in there just a little bit. to some of the concerns about being forced to do some clinical work or things like that when we're not feeling comfortable, I do want to say that there's strength in numbers, and maybe reminding ourselves, and maybe any one of you all on this call can chime in with the proper channels of advocacy, but using SAS, using organizing bodies, and maybe asking others if we feel comfortable going above our internship site, kind of reaching out for additional support from outside people. We are here all on this call, and it's a national community of support of psychologists, trainees, internship students all across the US. So maybe if we can kind of think about, in being good to ourselves, collaborating with others and maybe seeking support across networks outside of our immediate state and internship site as well.
I really want to second that, Joanna. And I've been thinking about, is there any way to organize and have more voices across disciplines, across, master's level, doctoral level, internship, practicum. And I'm kind of, feeling a little bit left field over here, a little bit out of my territory. I just found out yesterday that a university just 50 minutes away from me is asking their staff to come on site, whereas 50 minutes north that we are over here, we've already gone telehealth. So there's, like Carmen was saying, there's a lot of regional differences, and I'm thinking of, how can I maybe advocate for my colleagues down the road so that they don't have to put themselves in danger while, whatever university, that's the other piece that I've been told, is that there are university policies and procedures that are probably superseding sometimes that staff need to come, like counseling center staff need to come. But kind of like circling back to your point, I second your suggestion of, is there any way to organize as a larger body and to bring this up and raise this up to the authorities that need to be listening, or are probably listening but not acting at that same urgent speed that I'm feeling in this conversation today, and the chat especially.
This is Annalise. I would just agree with Johanna and Shazneen that this is a time, whether or not it's a big group of people writing, like one voice will really make a difference. So send all the emails, send the social media. This is the time to speak up for yourself, because it is not, I saw one of the chats was, I can't read the name, it might be Andrew, but wonder if anyone else has been feeling a sense of failure in our systems. I mean, we are seeing the cracks in the system, and students have, it's an interesting role that you sit in. You have the least amount of power, but wow, when you all speak, I think you actually have maybe even more power than you realize. But at the same time, like, the systems that you're in are not built for you. Period. So that's why I think speaking up is so important. I saw a question too about, if internship could be rescinded in the time of COVID-19. I mean, I think we're in some uncertain times right now. I wouldn't imagine that healthcare systems and mental health care systems are looking to scale back, but we also don't know. Unfortunately, the quote unquote cheapest labor is probably needed the most right now. And I think that what we're about to see in the midst of COVID, and all of us are about to feel, is a tremendous amount of ongoing mental health stress that we're gonna really need to learn to manage. And so my prediction is that we're gonna need more healthcare than ever, but in really creative ways. So the site that you got matched to may look different. And you're gonna probably, as the class of 2020 moving wherever you're moving into in the fall, going to just be living a different life than as a result of what's going on right now. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think just drawing on our structures and leadership styles that are inviting collaboration, inviting creating, advocacy, creating new resources in a very concrete way. To hash out what's being voiced on the call and in the chat. I wanted to just take a moment to plug a couple of outlets that SAS can provide for that, some of which have already begun to be used in this way. The SAS listserv, I will send a link in a moment with some instructions on that, as well as the SAS Facebook group, which is a student-only group. It's an open forum. Here is the link in the chat, which anyone on that platform who is a student is welcome to join. If you're looking to do some advocacy with other students, including to share that with the division's COVID-19 task group that I sat in on one of their calls this week. And it's a lot of people with training responsibilities who want to figure out, as is being voiced here, how to balance their responsibilities in a way that serves students and is creative in thinking about how to do that amid the constraints of COVID. SAS can be connecting students to that body, to APAGs, to other bodies that have some sway, and the Facebook group can be a site for doing that, as well as the listserv. I'm noticing our time and wondering if we want to kind of do a brief check-in, CJ, about some of the social impact, and then keep building on these advocacy steps at the close.
Sure. Yeah, I was also kind of trying to be mindful of the time. And so I was actually wondering if, since before the call, we talked briefly about possibly having, like weekly a support group check-in for, emotional support. So maybe we can push this back for that and maybe just focus on advocacy and just like planning for now. Because I think that's something that we have been talking about anyway. So I think it might be good for us to keep talking about that instead of like switching focus at this point.
Yeah. Annalise, would you be able to share a little bit about the upcoming webinar that the division has planned?
Yeah, so we actually have a few that are rolling out over the next couple of weeks. The next one is challenging racism and xenophobia that's going on right now. And we don't have the link set up yet, but it's looking like it's going to be Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern next week. That'll go out on the Division 17 listservs and a bunch. There's also a research one that's going on, getting formed right now with Dorothy Espelage, our VP of Science. And if you're interested in participating in the webinar, put your email in the chat box and I'll reach out to you. I know that the supervision and training section is interested in rolling one out as well. And so that might be, I saw Madeline asking about more discussion on internship sites. So that, that might be another venue to ask, because I think this information is going to unfold pretty quickly. And if there are specific topics that are really important to you, as Gloria has been encouraging, reach out to us, let us know. I mean, I think right now is the time our community needs to gather more than ever. I've been having a lot of conversations with students, with myself, and with my amazing Counseling Psych Conference tri-chairs, Julia Phillips and Carmen Cruz, just about what is our capacity? Are we giving from our overflow right now, or are we passing out at the end of the day? Just keeping an eye on our capacity. So I think, this has probably been shared quite a bit during this webinar, but I have been surprised in the amount of conversations I've had with colleagues and students, how few of us are keeping a schedule right now. And I know, love to all the P's out there. I'm married to one and I'd love to free flow myself, but this is a time not to kill yourself with a schedule, but if you, see the signs of situational depression and anxiety, I believe you. And, it's important to reach out. I reached out to a dear friend this morning and then started doing my scale of 1 to 10 check-ins with people. 1 to 10, is it 1 a shit show, or 10 it's great? Carmen's laughing because she got one of the tests. And it's whatever your number, mine was 5 or 6 this morning. So I knew I needed to start reaching out. And then, through conversations with people, how do I get to a 5 or 6? Or I might be just hanging, may not get to a 7 or an 8 today. I might just be hanging at a 5 or 6, just trying not to go lower. So yeah, I think I kind of went off on a rant there. Anyway.
No, it was perfect.
I really, I feel a lot of concern for our community right now, and just, you know, we are the helpers helping, and the helpers need help. You know, we are the wounded healers. We are not the perfect healers, and we are healers. We stand in a long lineage of healers. This is not work that is a joke. It's work we take seriously, that we care about. And so, you know, let yourself feel that right now. And, you know, I hope a time like this doesn't come again, but we are in this time and we're learning something about ourselves, our communities, and our profession, and the gaps. So thank you so much for just this space, Gloria, and all of SAS.
Gloria, can I say something real quick? And
yeah, for sure.
I usually am not the person that moves away from the more emotional relational piece, but I want to make sure I really say this about, I posted the CCTC website that has the statement that was posted yesterday. And this is the most powerful statement, I think, because what we did was create the statement so that people, stakeholders in psychology training and education, can present that to their VP if they need to, or the president of a university, or the leader of a VA, or whatever it happens to be. It was very specifically written from a student perspective and from a student advocacy perspective. So I want you all to know that. We had 37 people on the call last week, and 5 people took it and wrote it, and then we all edited it for 3 or 4 days. So I really encourage you to read it, because even though it's not for students, and we're working on a for student one now, but it is for stakeholders to be able to have a little bit more power to show a national document made up of 15 training councils, basically all the training that happens in North America and Canada and the United States. So want to make sure. And if you have a specific type of setting, you could go to the CCTC website that I posted in the chat and look up, for instance, if it's a VA, you can look up the VA national representative and email them, even collectively, get a few students together, email them. So you can find the person that represents your area of training within the training councils.
SAS had, in preparing for this webinar, had been kind of searching furiously for different statements and guidance that's been provided to interns and practicum students from APA and ACA and all the bodies, and has been by far, and I know this is getting voiced in the chat too, but just sort of the most reassuring one in terms of a student-centered response, and just really feeling seen, I think, as students in like the very important and urgent both training concerns for themselves that people have, but also wanting to continue to serve clients this year and to be prepared for future years. SAS exists to be a vehicle to figure out what students need. So I think I want to shift us now in our final kind of minutes to talking about what the folks on this call want from SAS. And I realize answering that question, as SAS leaders, we probably need to provide more information about what our venues are, what we can do, who we can be in touch with. I'm going to send in the chat right now a first step toward that. So this is a link that includes instructions on getting on the SAS listserv, the Division 17 listserv. These have been huge hubs of information sharing, as well as the kind of advocacy that is starting, for instance, among trainees who are in New York City who are not feeling safe in their sites, giving voice to that and trying to make their situation known, to find resources and support. CJ has named already another piece that we're going to be moving forward with, and maybe we can talk about that a little bit more right now, which is to start having just like a weekly check-in call for students here online. This is being hosted on our Zoom account, and we bought this Zoom account in the hope to be able to connect students online like this.
Yeah, so we don't really have any clear plan or whatnot at this point. It was just something that we talked about like 5 minutes before the webinar actually. But if anybody is like, needing a space to talk about or process different things that they're going through, like for example, like myself, I'm an Asian, so I've also been kind of like sensing this heightened, xenophobia and racism. And so if anyone want some space to talk about that and process that, then we could definitely use this kind of space to hold like weekly check-in for people. So if people are interested, please let us know and we can try to organize time and things for that. And also Robina also like volunteered to lead the call with me. So yeah, thank you for that as well.
Our SAS board is amazing. Thanks to you both for being willing to do that. And for those of you who are on the call who would be interested in sometimes checking in that space, or making classmates, other students at your training sites aware of it, we'll be sending more details as more gets set up, and doing some assessment also of kind of how to make this work. What are some other, so SAS is, we're a student government basically. The co-chairs sit on the Division 17 board. So we're in touch with leaders of the division like Annalise and Carmen, and Shazneen in the international section, being able to give voice to student concerns. We have an annual budget of about $12,000, and that's comes out of students' dues. I mean, you all pay that money in, and we want to give it back in ways that are meaningful. So those are some of the resources and outlets that we have. If you have kind of immediate ideas, or things you want us to start thinking about, or ways you want to start connecting with one another, having seen what folks are sharing on the in the chat box, feel free to check in right now about those things. I'm wondering if panelists also have ideas.
Don't have an idea yet, but I have a comment, which is to say that you are, some of it I recognize is your own experience that I am not connected with. I also was in grad school maybe 7 to 8 years ago. However, you are not alone in it. So this is my way of saying, let me know how you can lean on me, and I can pass it on to maybe my training director, or I can pass it on to my director, and kind of once again, create more numbers and create more voices. There's something about being in community and also leaning on and reaching out, for me at least, to people who have more power than me, and advocating. So if you feel tired, also pass on the baton to me, and I'm happy to carry that advocacy baton for you. So just to kind of let you know that this is collective energy, and I want to share and take on some of your energy if you're feeling exhausted, if you're feeling stressed out, which I can totally understand.
Yeah, we're all holding a lot right now, and there's also a ton of info out there right now, and we're conscious of, especially like with the SAS listserv and groups, not wanting to overload people with information. So I think from a panelist perspective, one thing I wanted to share with people who are on the call is that we are working on like just a one-pager resource sheet to condense down things that are available. And are just really excited to kind of stay in continuing touch through the groups, the weekly group that CJ and Robina were discussing, the upcoming webinars that Annalise was describing, and then just the different platforms that we have, like the Facebook group and the listserv and our private SAS email. So the conversation and sharing does not have to stop, and yeah, it's just meaningful to know really that it's sort of starting here. So we're kind of at the hour, and thought we might end today with just kind of a meditation and some intentions for moving on to what we might each have following this.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all on the panel and for everybody who's been just sharing their thoughts in the chat. This call is a perfect example of how just quickly things have been shifting based on what we're learning and the needs that we have. I mean, we kind of had like an outline of some things that we wanted to cover. I know in the survey, there are people who said that they wanted, to cover the social aspect and kind of have group support and stuff. And so our, response to that is to do those weekly check-ins and kind of use this time for what it seemed like a lot of people were saying that they wanted in the chat. And I know for me, from reading a lot of the experiences that you all shared about and the questions that you all have, my heart is feeling kind of heavy. So this brief meditation will hopefully help. I know it's 6:01 now, or 6:01 Central. So if you have to leave, that's fine. This will probably be a little bit less than 10 minutes. Okay. So you can get just like in a comfortable position wherever you are. And for this meditation, we'll just be practicing mindful breathing. It may seem like a short period of time, 5 to 10 minutes, but this length of time will be significant. It's just a time to like calm your mind and to quiet your mind and to bring awareness to the present moment. We've shared a lot of frustrations, uncertainty. People talked about feeling overwhelmed, stressed. So if you feel comfortable, I invite you to close your eyes and just to try and reduce the surrounding distractions, or even to keep a soft gaze to something neutral in your sight. Drop your shoulders. I know sometimes I tend to keep a lot of tension in my shoulders, and just relax your neck muscles and your mouth as well, your jaw. And just start to think about your breath. And how often do you even think about the miracle that is your breath? In this moment, how are you breathing? Just checking with yourself. Notice the pace that you're breathing at without trying to change it. Maybe you might place your hand on your chest or your heart and your stomach and notice your body movements, that they're rising and falling. So for the past hour, we've been talking about a global shock that we're all experiencing together, maybe in different ways. When I cue you for the next few moments that we have, we will share 5 intentional breaths as a collective. And as you're breathing, your mind might wander. Just remind yourself, it's okay. You are human and you are thought-filled. And just gently shift your awareness back to the pace of your breath, or to the rise and fall of your heart or your stomach. So now I'll guide you through the first collective breath of the 5, and then I'll fade in and out during the next 4. So just pace your breathing so you're ready to join me on the first inhale in about 3 seconds. So you'll start off by inhaling deeply for 1, 2, 3. Hold it in at the ceiling of your mouth for 3, 2, 1, and exhale and let out a deep sigh for 1, 2, 3. Flow into our second collective breath, inhaling deeply. Hold. And exhale, sigh. Our third collective breath in for 1, 2, 3. Hold for 3. And out. Fourth collective breath, go ahead and breathe in. Hold. Breathe out. Fifth collective breath. If you find yourself thinking about the pace of your breathing or, trying to keep up with me, just kind of release that control and judgment and breathe at your own pace. You're welcome to continue the deep intentional breaths or return to a breathing pace that's comfortable for you. The most important thing is just to know that the breath is within you and you have access to it at all times. Just share a few more breaths. We'll share 3 last breaths, and these can be at your pace. And you're welcome to use my guidance. So when we inhale on the first one, I'll have you release an anxiety that you've been holding on to today, or maybe even within the last hour. So as you inhale, go ahead and exhale, release that anxiety. On your next inhale, take in some grace and compassion for yourself. Exhale, release any negative energy you felt for anyone or anything outside of yourself. Inhale, receive kindness and love that others are sharing during this time. And exhale, sink into a comfortable position. As you continue to breathe, I'll share this short quote that I love to just close us off, and then we can go about our days. So this quote is by Oprah. It's in this short book that she has called What I Know for Sure. And it says, "My number one spiritual practice is trying to live in the present moment, to resist projecting into the future or lamenting past mistakes, to feel the real power of now. That, my friends, is the secret to a joyful life." And when you're ready, you can bring your awareness back. Open your eyes, just take in your surroundings, maybe shake a little bit or even stretch. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robina, and everyone who is on the call today, presenting, participating. You are our CP community, and you're not alone through this time. We're looking forward to staying in touch with you, continuing to work with you, and are just wishing you all the best today and everything moving forward. Okay, with that, I'm going to remain on the call for just a couple of minutes as we're closing out. If people have additional questions about connecting with SAS, because I know that there was a lot of links and comments going back and forth in the chat box, but we'll wind down for today. Yeah, and just so much gratitude again to everyone who participated.
Thank you. Wishing everyone well.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you all. Take good care.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
For students who are looking for those links, I am going back right now to grab them. So I'm going to be putting in the chat box the link to the SAS Facebook group, as well as the instructions. So that just went out. I'm also going to be putting the link here to our instructions to get connected both to the SAS listserv, which is the email chain, as well as the Division 17 listserv. We really strongly recommend connecting with both of those to hear about the upcoming opportunities to connect. And just please do know that these are platforms for you to reach out for what you need to us and other students. Okay, so those links are in there. The final thing I'm gonna do is put our email here. And we'll send out these links as well. And the email address of any of the panelists who are willing to be a resource. Thanks again, everybody. And thanks to you all so much for presenting today.
Thank you for pulling this together, Gloria. Yeah, it's been an honor to be on this panel and hear everybody talk about their experiences. And
yeah, I think the comment about this the training anxiety is really feeling like a parallel process to COVID, just like what's next, what's happening, who has the authority to do what. That really stood out to me today. And
I feel like we need better avenues for people to advocate as a group, because yeah, I feel like it's not really clear how we can actually go about doing that. So
yeah. And it'll take some time, I think, to sort through what was shared in the chat, digest that, and begin to I think do some member education for students and within our board to identify those things. But the COVID task group, I think, is going to be very important, as well as potentially some of our connections with APAGs who have been in touch in the past week to see what they can do.
I think I'm pretty, I mean, going back to that comment that I think it was Andrew made about systems and the structure, I think as more people are, or more institutions and organizations are seeing what's happening in other places, like what was happening in different sites in New York. One of my friends actually was working at one of the sites where their training director ended up testing positive. And then, after that, they, almost like a reactive response. I think that I'm hopeful that the decisions that are going to be coming out in the next couple of weeks will be a lot more towards the safety of the students and just like calming anxieties and stuff like that. There's just so much going on right now that even our, country and our state's leadership is just confused about how to respond.
So in a way, this whole situation kind of showed all the cracks in the system that was there for a long time and nobody just really realized. So hopefully it'll be an opportunity for us to actually fix things.
Yeah, if there was ever a moment where how to come together as students to figure out like what resources do we have, and if SAS were like looking for a plug to get on people's radars. I mean, this is obviously like a massive emergency and tragedy, but I think that it feels good that that we can be a resource and in some ways be more salient to students as they're trying to be heard and what they're experiencing, and trying to get resources and figure out their next steps and just connect with people. I'm so excited that you all will have a chance to do group, and yeah, and really happy to support you in figuring out like what kind of your capacities are and how to do that in a way that works for you.
Yeah, I think if you were to do it, Robina, I guess we had to keep it as an open group, I guess, because yeah. So I don't know if we need to send out a link every week through the SAS email chain, or should we just, I don't, yeah, not really sure like what would be the most efficient way of letting people know about this group and also kind of keep it functional.
Yeah. I mean, we can, what is today, Wednesday? We can talk through it by the weekend and figure out what.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Thank you for offering that space. I think that'll be really helpful, and to continue the conversations from today and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Really
maybe not
appreciate
only
it.
maybe
Okay, go ahead.
maybe counseling students, but also like maybe clinical psych and school psych. I don't know if there's something similar going on, but if they don't, I wonder if we can also extend this kind of new support to those people as well.
Yeah, I think in the chat, Madeline was saying something about being appreciative of having counseling psych folk, because her other clinical cohort individuals, some of them weren't. But yeah, I think we are, our field in general, and we talk about this a lot, just like being able to have each other, and that we value processing and all these, you know, things that other fields may not have the luxury of engaging in. I think that would be nice to do that. I'm gonna go.
Same, I'm gonna log off, but to anybody who's still on the call with us, just thanks for hanging in with us, and you'll be hearing more from us about these resources as we're always, you know, as we're figuring it out and figuring it out with you. So just thanks again, everybody. Stay healthy, stay safe.
Yeah.
Take care.